In this video, we're going to talk about why we know what to do and we don't do it. So it's basically motivation and consistency, and we're going to get into the details.
Our channel is dedicated to improve quality of life through increasing your perspective IQ to get you what you want.
Okay, the whole thing is when I hear that is that we are built to survive and not to thrive.
What does that mean
So in
exactly?
other words, it's kind of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of deal. So it's like the whole thing is that we have mental energy and physical energy. And what happens is that if our brains are designed to find the path of least resistance, like
Mm-hmm.
to use the least energy as possible.
To get the most reward with the least cost, yeah?
Exactly. So we're efficiency machines. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing is like when we want to do something, we kind of think about it. How can I get the reward or the what I want with the least effort possible? Why? Because the whole thing is back in the day when we were cavemen, we wanted to save as much energy as we could. So
Mm-hmm.
we were proficient. We didn't chase around the rabbit. We made a trap because it was more efficient to get it and conserve our energy. So there was days where they would go for days, they say starve. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why we're designed like when we taste sugar and we taste fat, it tastes yummy. It's because our system of recognizing our taste, of recognizing energy in a high concentration tastes good because our body knows, hey, this is high energy, this is good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a signal to us that it's very, very high energy, so we want to conserve it. That's why fat and sugar taste. So like there's people like, oh, I'm addicted, I just love it. No, you're designed. You're
Mm-hmm.
designed that way to survive. So to thrive, like think about anything that you really want to do, like you have to put a lot more energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's more less knowing and more doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like what you were saying about the body is designed to enjoy those things. So, and you even said to preserve it. So when we eat those high rich energy foods, our body no longer necessarily needs as much as it used to, as opposed to now. So that's where people are like, I'm addicted. But it's like, well, no, you were meant to enjoy it, but just try to be more moderate about
The
it
reason,
because we don't need to conserve it the way we used to.
we
It's
got it
so
good.
available.
We got
Yeah.
it good. We got it real good. We got it too good. So we see
Yes.
energy. We consume a lot of it. That's why a lot of us get overweight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're designed that way to recognize those things. Why wouldn't you want more of those things?
Mm-hmm.
Because it feels so good. Because it is good. It keeps you alive. So that's the hard part. Is like if you want to thrive, you actually have to put more execution,
Mm-hmm.
more doing. So the whole thing is that a lot of us know what to do, but we keep looking at things. We keep reading the books. We keep doing this. We keep reading more. We get more information. That's what they call mental masturbation, is that you just think by listening on through osmosis that you're going to capture a lot of those things because it's a
Mm-hmm.
shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest shortcut is actually
Doing
doing.
it, putting it into action.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, the whole thing with procrastination is that the pleasant alternatives into the unpleasant of actually doing the task itself.
Right.
Like you're kind of trying to find what's a better way to do this and this and this and that, and what happens is you're avoiding the task you need to do. The only time that we do things when we have to do things, that's when the circumstances choose you. Like you're getting sick, you
Mm-hmm.
need to pay the bills, so that's when you act. Like think about it. When are you mostly motivated to do things?
When you
It's
have to.
because you have to. Like there is no other shortcut. You just have to do stuff. You have to execute
Mm-hmm.
and to get those things. But once we get to those things and we have it, then we take it easy. So the whole thing is, it's like life gives you the answers after you fail the test. That's what it feels like sometimes. It's like, oh, if I would have known, or I would have done this, or this happened. It's like you took the test, you didn't know you were taking it, you failed it, and life gives you the answers afterwards. It's like, what for?
Mm-hmm.
If I would have known before, and that's the whole thing. We kind of know before prevention. We kind of know like when we're young, we're supposed to be healthy, but we can get away with it. So we make those unhealthy patterns, and then it's hard to break those patterns, or that chain of pattern when you get older,
Mm-hmm.
because the consequences wasn't immediately when you ate bad food when you were young, and it's not immediate afterwards. Like trust me,
No,
if you
it
ate a hot dog and
compounds
you
over time.
died, there would be no hot dogs,
Right.
right? So that's the whole thing. So it's like, why is it that we know what to do and won't do it? Because we're designed in a way to survive, not to thrive. So
Mhm.
you're actually going against your nature to do something that your body feels is not necessary.
Mhm.
That's
So,
the whole thing.
what would you suggest to maybe well, why do you think then that people have a problem with consistency?
Well, the whole thing is that sometimes we can't look into the future so much.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the problems is that we look into the future and we can't really see what we can do. So what happens is that people like to focus on the exception. So they're like, well, everybody knows somebody that smoked, drank, or did some kind of vice, and they lived up to 100. And
Or
they're
they
like,
were
well, they did
overweight
it,
and they
so
were
I can
mhm.
do it. Well, no, that just paints a scenario to your favor, whatever you like,
Mhm.
to live that far. That's the whole thing that they do something. And they're like, well, you're gonna die off of something. Might as well enjoy it. Well, yes, we all. If you play the game of prevention, death is gonna catch up to you one way or later.
Eventually.
But you're
Mhm.
just what you're doing is lowering the probabilities. And they're like, why would you want to live longer if if you're not going to enjoy those things? Well, that's the thing. That's your mindset thinks that you enjoy those things. So
Mhm.
a lot of people they want to what they're really doing is enjoying distractions and escapisms from really living their life. And really living their life is kind of knowing, hey, I got to do all this stuff so I can do important things, so I can help myself. If I help myself, therefore, I help the ones that are around me, and then I influence them, and they help themselves, and then we help as a community, and the community helps as a town, and town helps a city, and so forth and on, so forth and so on, that we eventually just help humanity as a whole.
Mhm.
The whole thing that people write books, the whole thing that people get advanced is that they write the best thing that they have, the wisdom, and what they're really doing is passing the baton to somebody else. We're an accumulation of batons
Mhm.
that we're using. So like a phone is all kinds of inventions from all kinds of people that accumulated into the phone that we use. So now it's our turn to invent something, to put something together to benefit future societies. And
Mhm.
that would be our contribution to humanity, to add our part, because we are taking advantage of and we're getting the fruits of everybody else's labor. So the lights that we have, the camera that we have, this communication, everybody created this and that's what we're benefiting of. So
Mhm.
everybody does their
Lucky
part.
us.
Even the cashier at the store is doing their part because it's contributing to the masses of society. So I remember when I was a cashier, one of my own business, but I was a cashier when there was no cashier needed, but I contributed to do what I can because that's part of it. So then you move up, then you start moving up, then you start moving up into position. So that's thriving
Mhm.
because you're contributing to everybody as a whole. You're actually making the place better to live for everybody else, including family, relatives, and strangers. So that's the whole thing that we're just doing those things, and that's what motivates us sometimes. So just as we are, the thing that sometimes we don't want to do something like especially losing weight or going to a goal is that we're constantly telling ourselves, we're constantly questioning it, is it worth it? Because it's not guaranteed. Like you hear about the underdog winning, you hear about all these stories,
Mhm.
people winning, but you don't hear about the losers. And we kind of know that.
Right.
So when we go for something, we can see what we want. We can see the conclusion, the dreams to be coming true. But how many people have dreams and they don't realize it? Like a
A
lot.
lot.
They don't talk about those. Those don't make good movies. The only movies that we see are the winners.
Mhm.
And that's the thing is that the probabilities is what is it? So that's kind of like we're kind of like taking a step back, and we're like we're gonna waste
And
all this time and
even
invest
to
it.
like even with like the underdogs, they all kind of have like the same underlying story. Whoever it was started in this horrible situation usually, but what did they do? They put in the work and the effort and they worked harder than the rest. And that's why they succeeded. So it's like we're all capable of that.
Well, the
It's
whole
just
thing
getting to
is that
do
if you
it.
want to be number one in a certain thing, yes, it's capable. But if you want to be the number one, let's say in a sport, you have ways to measure because the feedback's immediate.
Hmm.
But if you want to, like, say, lose weight, the feedback is not immediate.
No, but you still have the capability of accomplishing that task, whether you're going to be number one or not.
Exactly. So it depends what goals you have. Like
Hmm.
not all goals are created the same.
Agreed.
So I recommend to everybody concentrate on the goals that you have direct benefit.
Hmm.
So if you improve your diet and your exercise plan and you keep going, the one that's going to improve and get the direct benefits is yourself.
Absolutely.
And what happens is there's a lot of documentation and it's a lot of guarantee that you will lose the weight if you follow the plan.
Hmm.
So there is a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of knowing, but there's not a lot of doing.
Right.
So
And
the
there's a lot of proof.
execution is the
Hmm.
part. And what sometimes is that your why is not strong enough. Until you get sick, then you realize, man, I should have taken care of myself. How many sick people say, I should have taken care of
I
myself?
should have started
I should have
sooner.
done this. I should have done that.
Hmm.
Oh, I should, even bad decisions. I shouldn't drink and drive. You got away with it 100 times, but that 101, you kind of realize that you're like, well, yeah, I shouldn't have drank because it cost this and in my family and
You got the
bills and so forth.
consequence, or hmm.
Right? Like everybody regrets it after the fact, but nobody regrets it when they get away with it. So that's the whole thing. Like you get away with eating bad food
For a long
until
time.
you have a heart attack.
Hmm.
And then that's when you're like, oh, I regret it, but you knew it, but you didn't do it. And sometimes we think we're the exception. Oh, I can eat whatever I want. I'm going to be
Because
that
we know
person
that one person. Hmm.
because we know that one person. It doesn't happen that way.
Mm-mm.
The probabilities are against you when you do that. It doesn't mean that you will. You can be one of the exceptions, but most of us are not the
No.
exception. So that's the whole thing. So what happens is sometimes we like to see things immediately. Like now, everything's immediate.
Well,
Like
our brain is also wired to search for that novelty and that instant gratification. So trying to like go around things and being patient for the outcome that we desire, it's almost kind of like going against our nature, which is one reason why I think people struggle so hard to stay
because
consistent.
it's inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, if it takes too long, it's not really efficient. It's not really effective.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that we have this clouding of judgment because everything is so fast now. Like you order something and the
Oh yeah,
next day
there's
it's
a quick
here.
fix. That's why we all want the quick fix pill.
Yeah, and then do the least energy. There's people that rather go get surgery than lose weight naturally
Mm-hmm.
because it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole thing. We do a lot of things. We want everything really, really quick. So the whole thing is sometimes to stay consistent or motivated is because you probably don't have enough good strong reasons. So one, it just it's like really what is it that motivates you? When do you get on the ball?
Mm-hmm.
It's usually when circumstances force you to.
Right.
So if you can make those circumstances, fabricate them through a
Mm-hmm.
certain emotion, that's when you do it. So like say if you need to do it for your kids or you need to do it for your family or if you want to do it for yourself
Yeah,
or
maybe
you got
you have
anger,
you have knee
whatever
pain or
works.
something, whatever.
The
Mm-hmm.
common thing is it's a strong emotion.
Mm-hmm.
This is the number one thing. A strong emotion to do something. I'm gonna show them. If you hate somebody's hating on you, somebody's doubting you, you want to prove somebody wrong, or you
Mm-hmm.
love somebody, you need to do it for them, or even for yourself. Sometimes the whole thing is like self-respect. I always said self-discipline is self-love.
Yeah.
If you're very self-disciplined, that's because you love yourself. So that little voice that is telling you, the progressive voice that talks into you, that's what it's saying. Do this. It's not saying I know this. It's
Mm-hmm.
saying do this. It's the execution.
Mm-hmm.
It's not knowing. Once you start executing, your knowledge starts building.
Right.
So, okay, a friendly reminder. And if any time, if you get any value from this video, hit the like button, please, because that tells us to make more of what you like. And don't forget to subscribe for more perspective IQ. So the whole thing is that don't feel bad that you don't feel like doing anything because that's how you're designed. It's like
That's
feeling bad that you eat something sweet and it tastes good. It doesn't make sense.
mm-mm.
Don't feel bad that you eat something that's fatty and it tastes great. Don't feel bad that you like to eat carbohydrates like I do. Don't feel
Mm-hmm.
bad. You're designed that way.
But it's just to remind yourself too that you don't need as much as you used to. Our body still has that like caveman mentality.
Well, yeah, but the
But
whole
the
thing
whole thing is
is
that you
that
are designed to like it.
you're designed to survive, not to thrive. So when you're thriving, you actually had to punch through this barrier of the body saying no. Your body's saying, "What for? Why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're just fine. There's nothing wrong." But in your mind, your
In
mind
the
has to
future, mm-hmm,
control your body.
the mind
So
needs to be the master,
right,
not the
the
body.
body needs to be the master of the mind, not the other way around.
Mm,
And
hold
so
on. The mind needs to be the master of the body.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
The mind needs to master the body.
Not the
Right.
body over the mind,
Right.
correct. Yes, yes.
So sometimes when you go into temptation, it's kind of like the body wants what it wants, and the
Mhm,
mind says, "No, that's not good."
mhm,
So sometimes, like, think about when you've been really motivated to do something. Like myself, it's usually when the circumstances happen. But now I get to a point where I have done things, and then I'm like, okay, for the future, I'm gonna prevent this. I'm gonna prevent that. I'm gonna put some money on the side. I'm gonna invest in this. I'm gonna do
mhm,
that. And then when the time goes on, because it goes quick, you're like, man, I am so glad that I did that.
mhm.
So the whole thing is that sometimes, like, you have to realize that nobody regrets doing the work. They recognize that the pain is fleeting, and they appreciate the journey that they push through.
Right.
So the whole thing is, like, after you do something that you know is gonna benefit you for the future,
Mhm.
you don't go back and regret it.
When have you ever heard someone that's doing well in life say, "Oh, I wish I hadn't have worked so hard." Like, nobody ever says that. They never say, "I wish I hadn't have put in so much effort." Like, maybe they had wished that there were more efficient ways to get through something. Like, I know people that, like, now, like, let's say in the restaurant business, everything back in the day was all done by hand. Now everything is digitalized. So it's like, that's a more efficient way, but it didn't stop people from getting done what needed to get done in the past. So you don't ever hear somebody saying like, "Oh, it wasn't worth working that hard to build the business that I have or to get the body that I want." No one ever says that.
Exactly, no, because the results in our mind, we know that they're worth it.
Mhm.
It's just we're just fighting with the body because the body is like
Trying
not
to
it.
be the master.
No, but they're like, we're fine. Why, if it's not
Mhm.
broke, why fix it?
Very true.
Until it happens. And
Mhm.
then, but what happens is that when I talk to older people, they're like, I wish I'd taken care of myself better. I wish I'd done that. I wish I would have invested more money. I wish I would have done this.
Mhm.
I wish that when I was young, I would have done the things that were in those seasons. Because when you're 20, you can do things, and when you're 30, you can do other things, and 40, and so on.
You hear
So
people too
that's,
all the time sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
You hear people all the time too say, "I wish I knew now," or "I wish I knew then what I know now."
Mm-hmm.
But there, if you think about it, almost everything is at your fingertips. Like all of the knowledge that you almost potentially could want to know is out there already. You just have to try to figure out the right questions.
Well, see, I was fortunate enough when I came up in my helping my dad with his business that a lot of old people hanged around.
Hmm.
And what happens is that they're kind of like your parents are an extension of the past you, and they're going to give you the best advice so that you don't make the same mistakes they did. So that's the cheat code. But a lot of us don't listen to them because we don't want to be like our parents. We think they're uncool or whatever.
Or we think we know better or
Right.
more.
So that's the whole thing is that you got to absorb that wisdom when people tell you because they tell you for a reason.
Hmm.
They don't, some of them they tell you because they want to boast, but a lot of people tell you because that's what their most valuable thing is. That's what their wisdom is. You gotta
To pass it
sometimes
on.
take it in and really think about it and be like, well, is that gonna be really beneficial for my future? Because the future gets to you real quick, like
It
right
sure does.
away.
Time
And you're like,
flies.
man, I'm glad I did that. Or you're like, man, I didn't plan for anything. I didn't do anything with my life. So that's the whole thing. That's why that anything that you do, if you can find a strong emotion to connect to your purpose,
Hmm.
that's one of the things. That's why it's emotion. That's what energizes your emotion.
Hmm.
So if you win and you do stuff, it's going to be your fault. That's going to be a good deal. But if you lose, a lot of us want to blame it on other things. But everybody knows
It's
that
our
it's your
own
fault
fault.
too.
Hmm.
So when you win, people say, "Oh, you're lucky," because they're haters. But if you lose, they're gonna be like, "You're stupid," because they're haters too. It's not that. Whatever you do, it's gonna be mostly your fault. So if you have some regrets, it's gonna be mostly your fault. And if you did some good stuff, it's mostly your fault.
Hmm.
That's just how it is. We all kind of know it, but we do that self conservation. Oh, I had bad luck. Oh, I had this. I had that. But when good things happen to you, then that was that
Yeah.
good
Do you?
luck.
Hmm.
So you really have no control. Is that what you're saying? It doesn't make sense. It's either kind of like you got to pick either one. It's not your fault. You have no control, or it is your fault, and the bad things and the good things are your fault. So if you really think you have a locus of control, that you have control, that what happens into your future, you have a direct influence,
Mhm.
then the bad stuff and the good stuff is really up to you. So that concept, that control that you believe in, you need to express it by doing the things that push you towards your goals. You can't just think about it. You have to really act.
Mhm.
It's just basically doing.
Mhm.
There's enough knowing. You need to do more doing. So you focus on the process, not the perfection,
Mhm.
because
The
all
progress.
setbacks can't be avoided.
Mhm.
They're gonna happen. So if
Yeah.
you focus on the execution, not dreaming of conclusions, that's something I have to tell myself all the time.
Mhm.
Because I'm
Don't get
always like,
fixated on the end.
yeah, I want to be fixated. I get that one directional thinking and avoid everything else. And I have to go back and I'll be like, okay, you have to focus on the execution. The little wins here and there, they'll add up to big wins, and then you'll get to
Mhm.
the conclusion. I've done it before, and even though I've done it before, I have to remind myself.
Mhm.
So I have to celebrate and be proud of myself for those little things.
Mhm.
Sometimes I go to the gym and I'm like, man, I didn't feel like going, but I did it. I don't
And
regret it.
afterwards, you feel great. You're like,
Yes,
"Oh, I'm glad I went." You're never like, "Oh, I wish I hadn't have gone."
I gone for
Like,
years. We go for years. I go
yeah.
so minimum 5 times a week. Sometimes I use 7 times a week every day, and sometimes I used to go 14 times a week.
Mhm.
So it just depends. But
Mhm.
what happens is that you get used to winning, and that's like
Mhm.
the best thing. You
Yeah.
get addicted to winning.
My
You
favorite
want to
thing
keep
that you
going.
say is you have an acronym called BIKE, and it stands for Be in Key Execution.
Yeah,
And every once in a while, guess what? You fall off the bike. That's
that's right.
okay. Just get back on.
Yeah,
So
get back on the
just
bike
get
and
back on the
be in
bike.
key execution.
Yeah, I
Sometimes you
love that.
fall
That's the
off, and
one
you
that
have to
I
go
tell
back.
myself because I fall off once in a while and I'm
All
like,
right.
whoops, as long as I don't stay off for too long, I just get back on, you know?
So yeah, once you focus on those little wins or
Mm-hmm.
those being focusing on execution and not dreaming of
Mm-hmm.
conclusions, and the whole thing is that if you keep the end in mind, you probably can't see where you're gonna go.
You'll probably end up
But
further
if
than
you
you
keep
planned.
going, it's much more beautiful than you imagine it.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that I made a goal, when I got there, it was always better than I thought. Saying I just kept going and kept going.
Well, guys, we appreciate you listening to us. Please like, comment, and share, and we'll see you later.